This is the exercise or the project that we're doing. It consists of a base, which is a poly mesh that began as a cylinder, and then it was subdivided enough times to be able to allow for this kind of sculpture going on the top. The process recommended in ZBrush version 5, which is what this tutorial is about, is to create a cylinder, then adjust the cylinder in the initialize menu here. So they recommend, just taking the Z size down a little bit, and then taking the Y divisions down to 6. For a while I was confused about why that would be 6, but I think it's because it's measuring triangles, not quads. So once you've got the size done, then create a poly mesh out of this, and that will allow you to Control Shift and select just the bottom faces. Then you can Control Shift and drag to invert that, and then under the geometry tool, you go to modify topology and delete the hidden faces. So if we go into the display properties and show a double-sided piece of geometry, you'll see that you have kind of an open bottom here. Their suggestion is to go to the subtool here underneath this cylinder and click on Remesh, and he brought the resolution down to 64 and the polish up to 20, and then this is a symmetry, turn the symmetry off, and clicks on Remesh All. And what that gives me here is a remesh that doesn't really hold the shape of the original polygon. Just for comparison, this is from the tutorial, and you can see he goes into the remesh and adjusts the settings in the same way that I did, setting the resolution to 64 and the polish to 20, and eliminates the symmetry. And when he remeshes, his remesh is perfect. It has a really nice straight side. It follows the contours of the original cylinder very nicely. So that was the problem that I was encountering. I finally found from the instructor himself a discussion on digital tutors where he says this is no longer the recommended workflow for for ZBrush version 8. The recommended workflow is to start with a poly mesh, and the default poly mesh here is this star shape. If you go right into the initialize, we can create a quick cylinder with the primary axis being the Z and the 3 resolutions just being 2. We'll end up with a cylinder that fits inside a default 1x1 bounding box, and we can scale this and then scale it down and end up with a low-res cylinder, like this. As far as I know, if we want to adjust the resolution in any axis, we have to do that before the fact. As far as I know, there's no going back into the construction history one of these poly meshes. So I'm going to set the Z resolution to 3 and click on Q cylinder Z here, and that's going to give me this this Q cylinder. One of the inconsistencies here should be obvious. When you are in the initialize for the default tool, the resolution in Z has to be 6 in order to get 3 quads there, because, as I said before, I think it measures triangles. But in here, it's 3 because it's counting quads, which I find to be a little bit, weird. Also, this cylinder seems to have locked in local rotation axes. In this case, in order to get the correct shape, I can use the transformation tools built into this gizmo here. So I have my 3 sections going up this way, and this is giving me an 8-sided cylinder here. Once I've got this 8-sided cylinder, then I can go in and subdivide by hitting Control D, and that will subdivide this using a kind of a default subdivision algorithm. I can change that. Let's just go back to this, and one of the options that I have here is to go into the geometry subtool, and I can go to the edge loop tool, and what I would need to do then is select one of these poly sets. So that's Control Shift and then select, and then I can put my edge loop on that poly set. So I can either go with the top poly set, or I can invert that and go on the side. I'm just going to come down to my display tools and show this as a double. So I find that aggravating. So again, back in the geometry subtool, I can go to the edge loop and put an edge loop on the unmasked border here, and that's going to give me another poly set, so that I can then invert this and put an edge loop on this one as well. And then when I show the entire piece and subdivide it, I will get a better looking cylinder that's closer to the shape. And you can see that the topology on the front, it makes this transition from the round to the square, so it's a lot different from the piece that that he was showing. But with enough subdivisions, you can definitely sculpt with just as much accuracy.